Hey Facebook, Steve Sanson again, and I'm going to be doing this regularly, a series of these videos so you can have an understanding of what's going on in our community or state and on our judiciary. Well, right now I'm at 200 South Lewis. I am at the Regional Justice Center, the RJC, that houses the 8th Judicial District Court, and it also houses the Las Vegas Justice of the Peace. And I'm president of Veterans in Politics International, and I'm also president of the Nevada Veterans Association. And let me just tell you a little bit about Veterans in Politics. Veterans in Politics is a group, the only veteran group in the state of Nevada, I might add, that goes after political corruption. We also court observe, and we investigate candidates for elected seats. And we're an advocacy. We help litigants with their court case. In fact, I wrote a book on how to maneuver through the Clark County family court system. You can find that on Amazon. It's an A to Z book. It shows you exactly how to maneuver through the system. And visitation, custody, you name it, how to file complaints against a judge, how to file complaints against an attorney, and so on and so forth. It's very educational. I recommend it. Veterans in Politics was founded by veterans, but we have done a lot more than just help veterans. We also help the community as a whole. VIPI operates nationally. We have several chapters throughout the country. We have one chapter in Canada, but I mainly focus on what takes place in the state of Nevada, especially Clark County. So I could talk from experience. I could talk because I'm living it. I could talk because I'm seeing it and I understand it. And I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the news, and there is several cases that pop up in the news, and it talks about the Clark County District Court and the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, how they fabricate evidence or improperly investigate. They convictions, false evidence and testimony by LVMPD officers and investigators, flawed drug field tests, multiple drug convictions were vacated following the discovery that field drug test kits employed by the LVMP were prone to false positives. From 2011 to 2013, at least 5 wrongful drug convictions caused by investigative misconduct, trials against police misconduct such as misrepresentation of evidence, fabricating evidence, are ongoing. And federal juries have recently awarded significant damages in cases stemming from these convictions. This indicates a pattern of systematic errors in evidence handling, field testing, reliability and investigation misconduct leading to the overturned convictions in Clark County. Efforts such as the Conviction Review Unit and the federal lawsuits are key tools in identifying these errors and addressing damages for wrongful conviction of individuals. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because in 2026, there is a huge judicial race, 67 seats in the 58 district court seats, Las Vegas Justice of the Peace, North Las Vegas, and Henderson. 67 total, all up for grabs. And what I want to do, I want to educate you guys on on why it's so important to pay attention to our judiciary. Because you know what? I'm going to read 3 different cases that took place. Wrongful conviction of murder. Okay? And, you guys might not pay any attention to it because it's not you. But what happens one day it's you? It's somebody you love and care about. It's your neighbor. It's one of your employees. It's your employer. It's somebody that really means something to you, and these things happen to them. How would you feel then? I always tell people, have preventive maintenance. Do something about it now before it happens to you. And you know what? I personally don't have a dog in this fight. I'm just here to educate you on what's going on in our community, so you could better understand it. And when you go to the voting booth, you could vote with an educational mindset and know exactly what's going on. Let me talk to you about Christine Lobato. Christine Lobato spent nearly 16 years in prison after being wrongfully convicted for the 2001 murder of Duran Bailey in Las Vegas. She was only 18 at the time of her arrest. Lobato consistently maintained her innocence, and evidence later supported her claim that she was 170 miles away at the time of Bailey's murder. 170 miles away. There was no physical or forensic evidence linking her to the crime. Get this. There was no physical or forensic evidence linking her to the crime. But she did 16 years in prison for murder she didn't do. 16 years in prison for murder she didn't do. Key detectives involved in the investigation focused solely on Lobato's based on a misconstrued statements about an unrelated incident in which she had defended herself from a sexual assault months earlier. They disregarded other potential suspects, including individuals with direct motives to harm Bailey. So they look away from other suspects. So basically, they let the real murderer go. The detectives involved in the Christine Lobato's case were from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Go figure. Their investigations focused heavily on her after a secondhand report about her mentioning an unrelated incident involving self-defense against an attempted sexual assault. So what they did was they took something that she was talking about that had no relation to the actual murder and mixed it up to get her convicted. The lead detectives who built the case and testified, hold on one second, were Detective Thomas Townsend. He conducted interviews and obtained a recorded statement from Lobato, which was later mischaracterized as a confession. Also, Detective James Vaccaro, Vaccaro, played a role in the investigation and testified during her trial. And guess what? These 2 detectives are retired right now, getting their PERS, getting paid tax dollars, your tax dollars, when they put an innocent woman, 18 years old, in prison for a murder she never did. Both detectives face criticism for their handling of the case, particularly for failing to investigate other suspects with direct motives and for focusing exclusively on Lobato despite contradictory evidence. Both detectives should lose their retirement and face criminal charges. Don't you think? Don't you think if somebody put you in prison, or somebody put your daughter in prison for 16 years for a murder they didn't do, don't you think that they should be faced with criminal charges? Don't you think that the district attorney's office should go after these 2 folks? Don't you think they should do that? Ultimately, Lobato's conviction was overturned in 2017 due to new forensic evidence and investigative flaws. Get this. Christine Lobato was awarded over $34 million by a federal jury in December of 2024, which was a couple days ago, after they found that the Las Vegas police detectives fabricated evidence in her wrongful conviction for the 2001 murder. So these two detectives fabricated evidence. Why? Why would they put an innocent 18-year-old woman in prison for 16 years for murder she never did? Why would they do that? Lobato spent nearly 16 years in prison before being exonerated in 2017. The jury awarded her $34 million in compensatory damages and $10,000 in punitive damages against the retired detectives involved: Thomas Towson, Thowsen, and James LaRochelle, Larochelle. In Christine Lobato's 2002 murder trial, the presiding judge was Valerie Vega in Nevada's 8th Judicial District Court. Judge Vega also oversaw her retrial in 2006, which Lobato was again convicted on a lesser charge. Both trials were later criticized, and procedurally flaws included issues related to the admission and handling of evidence. Lobato's conviction was ultimately overturned by the Nevada Supreme Court in 2017. Christine Lobato was convicted of murder in 2006 and spent 16 years in prison. Her conviction was overturned by Judge Stephanie Miley in Clark County's 8th Judicial District Court following new forensic evidence presented during appeals. The case showed that prosecutors had misrepresented the time of death, heavily relying on flawed forensic timelines, which ultimately led to Lobato's wrongful conviction. The court's review found strong evidence undermining the prosecution's timeline and supported Lobato's alibi, supported by the Innocent Project and expert testimony. Judge's rule subsequently released. The LVMPD has indicated plans to appeal the decision. After all that, Metro still wants to appeal because they're trying to save money. They're trying to save face, but they actually put an innocent person behind bars for 16 years. What is Sheriff McMahill going to do about that? You know, what could he do? Sheriff, what could you do about it? I know you weren't sheriff back then, but what could you do about that? Now let's talk about Margaret Rudin. Margaret Rudin was released from prison because a federal judge found that she had not received a fair trial and was wrongfully convicted. The decision came after 20 years of incarceration for the murder of her husband, despite maintaining her innocence throughout. In 2022, a U.S. District Court for Nevada vacated her conviction, recognizing that Rudin's trial was flawed and that prosecutorial errors had contributed to her wrongful imprisonment. Following the court's findings, prosecutors dropped all remaining charges against her, effectively clearing her name. The prosecutorial errors in Margaret Rudin's case included withholding evidence, prosecutorial misconduct, and failing to ensure that Rudin had a fair trial. These errors stemmed from the mismanagement of evidence and a failure to disclose exculpatory information, which undermined her ability to build a proper defense. Additionally, the fairness of her trial was compromised due to these oversights, ultimately leading to her wrongful conviction. A federal judge later ruled, hold on one second, these errors contributed to her years imprisonment. Now here's another one. innocent woman did 20 plus years in prison for murder she didn't commit. Now she had to do 20 years for murder she didn't commit. She was grieving for losing her husband and they locked her up for it. Could you believe that? Now, taxpayers, this is incredible how we let these things go. In the Lobato's case, she won $34 million. Who do you think is paying that? Taxpayers. And these detectives that's on the case that charged this innocent person of murder, got her convicted, they're on retirement right now. No harm, no foul. Who is going to suffer the consequences for this? I'd like to know. The prosecutorial errors in Margaret Rudin's case stemmed from a lack of fair trial, procedural, withholding critical evidence that undermined the defense. Specifically, Clark County District Attorney's Office failed to disclose exculpatory DNA and forensic evidence, as well as other key details that have challenged their case against Rudin. These oversights, combined with other trial flaws, led to her 2001 conviction of her husband's murder. A federal judge later determined these issues as contributing factors to her wrongful imprisonment, leading to her eventually release and vacating of her conviction. Now, at the time, David Roger was the district attorney, and he played a significant role in this. Matter of fact, David Roger was the lead prosecutor on this case. Now David Roger is the general counsel for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Association, the LVPPA. Las Vegas, LVPPA, which is the police union for the Las Vegas Police Department and others. So now David Roger, who was the lead prosecutor on this Margaret Rudin case, was also district attorney, and now he's a general counsel for the police union. The judge who oversaw Margaret Rudin's original murder trial in 2001 was District Court Judge Joseph Bonaventure. Bonaventure was noted for his strict and no-nonsense approach throughout the trial. The management of the case came under scrutiny, particularly in relation to the overall fairness of Rudin's legal representation and trial preparation. Despite his involvement in proceeding over the conviction, Judge Bonaventure later recused himself from Rudin's appeal in 2004, citing concerns about possible bias stemming from prior attorneys involved in Rudin's defense. Those were two cases. Two innocent souls went into a prison system for a murder they didn't commit by prosecutors and detectives fabricating evidence to get a conviction. And the guilty person that did this is still on the loose, still out there, probably to kill again. Who knows? I want to talk to you about the Fred Stees case. And in this one, it involves somebody that I like, and we have endorsed, and I considered him to be a friend. And Stees' murder case involved key investigative figures, including Douglas Herndon and Bill Kephart as prosecutors. Both individuals played roles in the legal actions that led to Stees' wrongful conviction for the murder of Gerard Soules in 1992, even though evidence eventually cleared his name. Herndon, now a Nevada Supreme Court justice. Now, Justice Herndon, he was a prosecutor in the district attorney's office. He ran for the 8th Judicial District Court. He sat on that. And now he is a Supreme Court justice. William Kephart, who I considered a friend, was a prosecutor in the Clark County District Attorney's Office. He was also a Las Vegas Justice of the Peace and became an 8th Judicial District Court judge. Now, both of these individuals, Herndon and Kephart, faced scrutiny over the flawed prosecution of this case. Steeves was convicted in March 1995, spent nearly 21 years in prison, and was eventually cleared of all charges in 2017 after a series of legal developments and parts. Now, people told me that, hey, Fred Steeves was a bad guy. He had a criminal record. Okay, but if you have evidence to clear the man of murder, it doesn't matter what he did. You don't pin a murder on him because he has a bad record. You go out and find the real murderer. You know? Come on. Is that justice? Really? The case investigation included coercive tactics during this initial confession and other prosecutory errors that contributed to his wrongful imprisonment. Legal mechanism like a federal lawsuit and settlement eventually compensated Steeves for his suffering. Specifically, he was awarded approximately $1.4 million for his ordeal through a court-ordered settlement following years of incarceration and legal battles. I guess he had enough. He wasn't a fighter like Lobato is. He just wanted out of there, you know? And he probably didn't take it to federal court, because if he took it to federal court, he could have cited all kinds of civil rights violations. The detectives involved in the Fred Steeves murder investigation have not been definitely named in a widely available reports. However, it is evident that law enforcement and prosecutorial misconduct were central to this wrongful conviction. Prosecutor William Kephart and Justice Doug Herndon were later associated. Now, I didn't write this. This is in the news. So don't blame the messenger. Was later associated with misconduct in other cases as well. So they're saying that it was not only this one case. There was other cases that both of these prosecutors did misconduct in. Although Steeves specific detectives were implicated broadly in evidence mishandling and false testimony leading to his conviction. Evidence in Steeves' case ultimately demonstrated that law enforcement and prosecutorial errors contributed to his imprisonment, including withheld evidence, undermined his alibi claims. Moreover, reports suggest broader patterns of prosecutorial misconduct and investigative flaws without specific detail. Individual detectives' names frequently listed in media findings. These misconduct allegations revolved around forced confession, Alford pleas, and other coercive investigative strategies which wrongly implicated Steeves and other defendants in Nevada cases. An Alford plea, let me explain. An Alford plea allows a defendant to maintain their innocence while still entering a guilty plea to avoid the risk of going to trial. In other words, they'll say, hey, do this confession over here. It's not really a guilty deal, but do this confession because if you go to trial, you're going to get a harsher sentencing. So do this over here, sign this confession, you won't go to trial, and the sentence will be lighter. I'll go to trial. I'm just saying, that's what I would do. Yes, allegations have been raised about Nevada Supreme Court Justice Doug Herndon's role in the... Folks, Steve Sampson, President of Veterans in Politics, Nevada Veterans Association, and we just had some technical difficulties. We're out here doing a live news release, so to speak, in front of the Regional Justice Center, 200 South Lewis. And I just wanted to continue where I was leaving off. I was talking about the Fred Stees case. And yes, allegations have been raised about Nevada Supreme Court Justice Doug Herndon rolled in the wrongful conviction of Fred Stees in 1995 while serving as a prosecutor. Herndon, along with another prosecutor, former district court judge William Kephart, reportedly withheld exculpatory evidence in Stees' trial. Stees spent 20 years in prison before his conviction was overturned. And just, folks, let me just explain. Justice Herndon at the time was a prosecutor with the Clark County District Attorney's Office. He became a district court judge, and then he became a justice, Supreme Court justice, which he currently holds that seat today. William Kephart was a prosecutor with the District Attorney's Office, whom I consider him to be a friend. And he became a Las Vegas Justice of the Peace, and we supported him the second time around. We also supported him when he ran for the 8th Judicial District Court judge seat and became a district court judge. So I just wanted to let you know that history. Herndon later publicly apologized for his role and supported legislation efforts to compensate the wrongful convicted. However, neither Herndon nor Kephart faced formal sanctions for their conduct in this case. Why is that? Why didn't they face any kind of disciplinary? Instead of rewarded them to be on the bench, but while they were a prosecutor, they had evidence to release Fred Stees of murder, but they chose not to, sending this individual to prison for 20 plus years. Although they say that, well, he has a criminal record, but that doesn't mean it's okay to send him to prison for a murder he didn't commit while the real murderer is out there. And nothing happened to these two prosecutors at all. Doug Herndon himself publicly supported Assembly Bill 267 during legislative hearing. The law passed in 2019 grants up to $50,000 annually per year for 1 to 10 years of wrongful incarceration, $75,000 for 10 to 20 years for wrongful incarceration, $100,000 annually for anything beyond 20 years plus for wrongful incarceration capped at $1.5 million. So Justice Herndon basically said he did it. He apologized that he withheld evidence that would have cleared Fred Stees. I haven't heard anything from Bill Kephart saying he did it, but according to what I'm reading, Justice Herndon said he did it, basically. I mean, he didn't actually say I did it, but he apologized for it. So what does that mean? The judge who oversaw the Fred Stees murder trial in 1995 was Judge Nancy Osterly. This case involves Stees being convicted for the 1992 murder of Jared Souls, despite Stees insisting that he was not in Las Vegas during the time of the murder. It was later discovered that the prosecutors failed to disclose evidence that could have cleared Stees' name, leading him to his wrongful conviction and 21 years in prison. Elisha Kadish, Justice Elisha Kadish, very good justice, very good judge. Elisha Kadish is thumbs up all the way. On the Nevada Supreme Court, Kadish declared Stees factually innocent in the 2012 after uncovering prosecutorial misconduct during the original trial. This decision was pivoted to clearing Steve's name and establishing the innocence after he spent 21 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit. I don't know how Justice Kadish could sit on the Supreme Court with Justice Doug Herndon, knowing that Justice Herndon, as a prosecutor, deliberately kept evidence that would have cleared a man for murder. I couldn't sit up there with him. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. In recent years, several convictions tried to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, LVMPD, investigations have been overturned due to evidence fabrication, prosecutorial misconduct, and other issues of legal concerns in Clark County District Court. Additionally, broader patterns of missteps have led to other LVMPD related cases being overturned, including wrongful searches and excessive force claims. Defendants like Jose de Castro also challenged convictions following alleged illegal or unconstitutional search and seizure evidence used by officers. These cases underscores repeated patterns of evidence manipulation, wrongful convictions, and prosecutorial decisions failing to follow ethical procedures. These overturned cases are a response to systematic issues with repeated examples pointing to evidence suppression, forensic missteps, and questionable police behavior. However, specifics about other individual cases tied directly to LVMPD convictions overturned solely for falsifying evidence or misconduct require deeper legal review and analysis. Why would the district attorneys, prosecutors, and the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department detective fabricate evidence? And if they have evidence to clear somebody, why wouldn't they present it to the courts? It's their legal obligation to present it to the court and to opposing counsel, which is the defense. And they're not, if they don't do that, that's criminal. There are many times the Clark County District Attorney's Office and law enforcement, especially the LVMPD, are in bed together. And they have taken some judges with them. That means some of these judges are also in bed with this type of misconduct, so to speak. Giving money and endorsement for judges' re-election is a big deal in getting convictions. Many incentives such as performance benchmarks, promotions, elected positions, name recognition, financial incentives helps with their resume for future opportunities and brownie points with the victim's family. We got him or we got her. So basically what I'm saying, because I was trying to figure out why would prosecutors and detectives fabricate evidence knowing that the evidence would clear somebody, but they choose to ignore it and they choose to not give it to the courts or give it to opposing counsels because they want to win. It's all about the win. They want to win. They want that little check mark on their belt. They want this name recognition. They want this thing on their resume to say that they convicted Margaret Rudin, the Black Widow who killed her husband, or they convicted Christine Lobato, the woman that sliced off a homeless guy's penis, or they convicted Fred Stees, who has a criminal record. They want this win, but guess what? None of these people did what they said they did. All three of these people was innocent of murder, and they were placed behind bars in prison for some crime they never committed. Is that justice, folks? What happens if that was your uncle, your brother, your sister, your mother, your grandmother, your grandfather, somebody that you love and care about, and this happened to them? How would you deal with it then? How would you deal with some prosecutor from the district attorney's office that fabricated evidence or refused to release evidence of somebody's innocence, and now they're behind bars for the rest of their lives? And this is a domino effect. It doesn't just affect them. It affects their family. It affects their soul. I am sure that these three individuals probably thought about committing suicide 1 or 2 times. And then when you got LVMPD detectives fabricating evidence, coercion evidence, how is that justice? We live in a country that's supposed to have a fair judiciary. But when this type of stuff happens, how could we turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to it, folks? How could we do that? These are all ethical charges, while the real killer that did these 3 murders is still on the loose and probably out there to kill again. So when these detectives fabricate evidence, when these prosecutors fail to disclose evidence to the courts, the real killer gets away and the innocent go to prison. Clark County, we have a major problem here. And you might say that this doesn't happen too many times, but does it matter? If it happens one time, it's one time too many. That's why I'm against the death penalty, because of stuff like this. Because this is crazy. We cannot have prosecutors deliberately fabricating evidence, deliberately withholding evidence from opposing counsel and the courts. We can't have detective coercion. We can't have them fabricate evidence, and then we're going to call them police officers. How could we, in a right mind, call these people police or call them law-abiding folks that's supposed to uphold justice, that took the oath and raised their right hand, and they're supposed to protect and serve when they're doing this? How could we reward them with retirement? How could we reward them with being on the Supreme Court bench or being in our judicial system? These detectives should have their retirements taken away from them. And they should be facing criminal charges for what they did. These prosecutors that did it, the same thing. They should face criminal charges for what they did. So now, in these civil lawsuits, us taxpayers are on the hook. Clark County, we could do better, man. It's up to you to do better, And if anyone out there have any evidence on any of our elected officials, please reach out to me. Send it to me. My email is vipipresident@cs.com. My phone number is 702-283-8088. Send it to me, because Clark County, we have all 58 district court seats that are up. We have municipal seats in North Las Vegas, Henderson, Las Vegas, and North Las Vegas, Henderson, and Las Vegas, both justice and municipal court seats that are up for grabs in 2026. We need to pay attention to these seats. We need to do what's right. And I'm calling out to our district attorney, Steve Wilson. Do something about this. Do something about this. And our sheriff, Kevin McMahill, the same goes to you. Do something about this. Is this really justice? Is this justice? Come on. 20 minutes in prison is 20 minutes too long. And we have folks that did 16 years, 20 years, 21 years in prison for murder, for a crime they never committed. Please, let's do something. This is Steve Sanson with Veterans in Politics and Nevada Veterans Association. We're going to have a series of these. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening.